Hello friends, and welcome back to the Mothership. Today we are smoking up our very own barbecue apple pie pork ribs. Let's get started. Okay, we've got here a rack of St. Louis cut pork ribs. I have done many a spare ribs, guys. I have some videos out there that show you how to cut down, break down a spare rib set to be in this style. So if you're interested, you can definitely check that out. I will have it in a card, probably somewhere above right here. But like with most ribs, what we're going to do is just trim everything up. So I'm going to take this excess off the back. Save this. Is delicious meat. This can go into my freeze pile. And I'll use this for a different purpose. You can take off anything that's just not going to cook right. Like this nice little section right here. Definitely keep this, but I'm going to square this off. Ooh, that looks yummy. Take off some of the edge here, because that probably won't cook too well. And then quite often they give you a little one on the very end that I often take out right here. There, just to square everything up a bit so it all cooks kind of even. Then any crazy hard pieces of fat on the top, I usually take that off as well. This is actually pretty good. There's a little bit on here that I'm going to take off, but nothing too crazy. Now since these are pork ribs, that means I'm going to take the membrane off. I don't do that for beef ribs if you're following along all my videos, but I do it for pork because it's kind of gross. Beef ribs, obviously, you also need it because it kind of keeps everything together, but you don't really have that issue with pork. So what I do is I get a butter knife underneath here, enough to get a nice little finger hold, which I think we've got. Then I kind of get a finger under there. Boom! That wasn't too bad. You can pull off some of this fat underneath here if you want. You're not going to eat it. It's just kind of gross, extra hard fat. So I'll pull out a little bit between the ribs, but nothing too crazy. But get everything nice and cleaned up. We've got the membrane off. I took off our little cartilage flap. Now let's get some salt on here. Now since it's a nice cut of ribs, I went ahead and salted it. I use a ratio of about a half a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt per pound of meat. Since there's probably about half of this weight is in bone, I'd err on the lighter side, so I did a half teaspoon per pound. This is a 4-pound rack, so 2 teaspoons. I have it on here. I'm just going to put it back into the fridge and let all of that salt get into the meat before we move ahead with doing a little bit of a dry rub. Okay, just like that, all of our salt has been absorbed. So what we're going to do is get a dry rub on here. Now for a binder, I'm going to use some apple cider, just to start with a little bit of apple. And for our rub, I'm going to use my all-purpose rub. You can really use anything here that is sweet. Obviously, don't use anything with more salt added because we already salted. If you skip that step, use whatever you'd like. But sweetness is the name of the game here, guys. I have my recipe obviously down below. Check it out. It's delicious. Just a nice base sweet rub. I don't go too crazy on this side, more for color than anything else. What we're going to focus on is the meat side. So get a little more of our cider on here. There we go. Make sure we got just enough liquid for adhesion, and then coat this sucker down. Pat it on, get the sides. And at this point, we're going to get the smoker up to a temperature of 225 degrees for these to go on. We are up to temp and we are on the smoker. Obviously on the top rack with the bone side down, standard rib stuff. I'm running this at 225 and I'm going to keep doing that until the bark sets. I usually don't tell you what kind of wood to use, guys. Use whatever you want, but we're making apple pie ribs, so you know what? Apple wood is what I'm going with. There's a little bit of white powder on here. I put some MSG on here. I'm still kind of testing that out. You can check out one of my earlier videos on that. So that was an extra step, but I didn't include it because a lot of people don't like MSG or don't have it on hand. But I am using that here. So just gonna let it run here 225 until everything sets, and then we might have to start spritzing down with some apple cider. Couple of hours in, our bark is nice and set. You can see nothing's moving. We got some nice color on here, which means I'm gonna begin spritzing it. So I'm just using apple cider like always. Get it nice and sprayed down. And I'm gonna do this every half an hour or so, really when it starts to look dry. That looks wet, gonna close her up, let it keep going, and then keep spritzing it as it dries out. We are about 5 hours into our cook, which means it's time to get our barbecue sauce on. We're going to use this to base towards the end of the cook, and to make this be an apple pie barbecue, we need to have some apple. So over here, we're not using applesauce, we are using apple butter. Now this is basically just like jam that is really concentrated. You can find it in your grocery store. This is just the local brand. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take 3/4 of a cup of this, and that's what I'm going to use to start our barbecue sauce. Now this is going to be like jam, so it's going to be very difficult to mix around. So I'm going to get it, put it into a microwave safe container, and melt it down so that it is ready to be spread in with everything else. Let's get that. There's our warmed up apple butter, and I'm going to throw in some ketchup as well. We're also going to add in some brown sugar and some apple cider vinegar. Also going to throw in some salt, some garlic powder, some onion powder, and some black pepper. Now I'm going to take this, throw it onto the stove, reduce it down, try to get it into nice and mixed together, and we'll use this to baste. We have been on for several hours, and as you can tell, I've already started putting on our barbecue sauce. But the goal here is to just get everything nice and lathered up. It's very thick. Usually I like it a little bit thinner, so more apple cider would probably be better here. I showed this earlier, but of course, like I said, wasn't recording. This shows that it's probably about time for me to start the sauce. Everything is bending really well, so we're in a good spot now. I think we're getting close to pulling them. I think another probably 30 minutes maybe, but get some more of this apple butter barbecue on there and let it keep cooking. Okay, we are several hours deep, and all of these ribs are ready to go. They smell so good, guys. It is unreal. It smells like a mixture of apple and apple pie. Guys, I am super excited to see how this turns out. We started out with our all-purpose rub on the front end. It's basically just a sweet all-purpose rub. It's really good on pretty much everything, but it doesn't have a lot of complexity to it. Now, these being apple pie ribs means there is some complexity somewhere, right? We created an apple pie barbecue sauce, which is really, really good. You could add more flavor to it on the apple side or the sweetness side, but I think where we hit in the middle is a really, really good just barbecue sauce that's somewhere oscillating in the middle. It's gonna be a really, really good barbecue sauce. And to be honest, I really wanna figure out how it tastes. Guys, I'm jonesing, I need a taste. Let's see how we did. Oh my goodness. Guys, that is absurdly good. You guys absolutely need to give this a try. If you like it, please let me know down below. If you like something different, also please let me know down below. As always, guys, cook something fantastic, and I will see you all on the UFOBBQ next time. Take it easy.